next tool I want to show you is the clone stamp tool. Now this is one of my favorite tools, but it requires a bit more of a refined, delicate touch as opposed to some of these smart editing tools that quickly slap things on for you. So because it's more refined, you're able to get more nuanced finishes, but it is about using now your artist eye and hand and working a bit more slowly and carefully. So the clone stamp tool can be found over here. And what it does is it samples an area and then allows you to paint it elsewhere. So let me just show you really quickly. Let's say I wanted this gallery directory sign to be up above it as well. So I'm going to sample this by hovering over the area, and on my keyboard I'm holding down the Option key or the Alt key. Notice now it turns into a little target. If I click, that's the reference point that I'll be starting from. Now I'm going to move my clone stamp tool up and notice that it's bringing whatever I clicked on when I was in the target. Now I can click and drag and paint, and you'll see I've got this little plus sign below me showing the source material. So as I'm painting, it's showing me what I'm pulling from. Come out, paint this whole sign up here. Now I can edit this tool as well. So you can see here I had my hardness all the way up, giving it a really sharp edge. If you want a softer edge to it, take the hardness down. You can also adjust the size of the tool. And now I want to make the wall around it look more realistic. So I'm going to source again. So now I'm choosing my source material as this area. So I'm holding down Option. I've got the little target. I'm clicking there. That's my source material now. And I can paint that up to this edge. And again, working really delicately and carefully now to make this look as realistic as possible. So that's the clone stamp tool. I actually want to undo all of this I just did as an example and do something actually useful for editing my image. So I'm going to go into my history over here, and I'm going to go back and find the spot where I first started using the clone stamp. Here. And I'm going to start working again from this spot. So if you ever want to go backwards, you can do that here. But once I start making new edits on my piece, I can never get back to any of this clone stamp stuff. That's all going to get erased, and I'm making a new history from now on, starting at the merge layers. So I don't want any of that anymore anyway, so that's fine. What I'd like to do now with the clone stamp tool to show you how refined it can be is start to change this a little bit so that light on the wall makes a bit more sense and falls more evenly down to the top of the elevator door. So I'm going to make sure that it's really soft, and I'm going to work with a little bit of a bigger brush, checking my size over here to make sure it's what I want. Okay, and I'm going to choose my source as this light area, so I'm going to click Option here, and I'm actually going to take the opacity down on the part that I'm painting so it's a little bit softer, and I'm going to come and paint in here. Just make that a little bit lighter. I'm going to take the opacity down even more and continue to paint light in this area here. And then doing the opacity and the softness really high just so this looks as realistic as possible. And so now notice my light patch isn't as interrupted. You can continue to fuss with it until you get it just right. Really paying attention to where you've sourced from. So if you need to reset your source, always make sure you do that. And I'm being really careful here. If I painted too far down, it would start to source from the elevator door, and I don't want that. So Command Z to undo. And as I come down, let's just reset my source higher up. so that won't be an issue. Nope, Command Z to undo. And I can go into my history and go back as well. Let's source from here. And there we go. Nice. Got a little bit more believable light spot here. We can also use the clone stamp tool to come in and fix up this stuff down here. So let me zoom in. And I want to make this line more consistent. So let me go now to 100% opacity. I want the size to be smaller. That looks nice. And I'm going to take as my source this line over here, and I'm just going to continue it up. And let me start actually from the intersection. So I'm going to take as my source the intersection. I'm going to put it where I actually want it to be, and then I can draw down from there. Good. If I come over here, it's just going to paint tile in for me. Just cleaning up these lines a little bit. Let's start again from this intersection. I'm going to use that as my source. I'm going to put it where I actually want it to be and draw from there. Reset my source. Here actually. There we go. And let's get this line as the source. Come over here, clean that up a bit. Set this as my source and paint that there. And then let's get this line going across a little bit cleaner. Okay, looking a bit more believable already. I can almost be convinced that there was never a poster there at all. So you can see the clone stamp tool is a really great tool, but it takes a little bit more finesse. It's not the same as just like deleting out a whole area and allowing content aware fill to take over. You can even use it if you've got some bright spots you want to get rid of. So let's say I come in here, I use this as my source. I can now edit out the glare. Same over here, choosing my source again. So always be thoughtful about where you're using your reference or your source and reset it if you need to. You can play around with opacity. It's going to be a little trickier as it intersects with the letters, but you could find an R maybe somewhere else and paste that in if you want to get really fancy. So that's the clone stamp tool. I'm a big fan of it, but it's going to take a little more time and a little more finesse. And for your quicker, rougher jobs, you can use the patch tool or the content aware fill. I'll show you one more tool, and then that will be the end of today's video tutorials. I hope this helped.